She had worn a groove into the April ice. A circle, maybe 15 meters across the same path, traced enough times that the snow was packed hard and slightly darker than the surface around it. Daniel saw it before he saw her. He was still 150 meters out, on foot, across the Foxe Basin ice sheet, and he stopped walking. Then he saw her. A large female, moving in a tight circuit around something at the center he could not yet see. She was aware of him. She stopped, turned, looked. No charge. No warning bark. She held the look for exactly as long as it took to decide he was not the point. Then she turned back and kept walking in her circle. He had been looking for this bear for 4 days. He did not know yet why she was here. He would not fully understand it until he was 3 meters from a 400-kilogram male polar bear, holding a pair of bolt cutters in his hands. But that came later. Daniel Hayes had been running wildlife surveys on the Foxe Basin sea ice for the Canadian Wildlife Service for 6 years. F7 was one of 43 bears in the monitoring database, a 7-year-old female, tagged 2 seasons ago. Movement patterns logged across 460 kilometers of Foxe Basin ice. She hunted the western leads. She traveled 11 kilometers on an average April day. She did not stay still. 2.5 days ago, her GPS transmitter had stopped moving, not the flatline silence of a failed tag or a dead battery. The signal was live, blinking every 4 hours from the same coordinates, 90 kilometers northwest of the monitoring station, out on open ice where there was no den, no cached food, no documented kill site. Just a signal. Same position, hour after hour. 18 hours of zero displacement. Then 24. Then 36 by the time Daniel and Marcus Webb, the station's ice safety coordinator, loaded the snowmobiles on the morning of day 3. F7 had not moved in 62 hours. "How far out is the ice stable?" Marcus asked, looking at the map. Daniel had the April thickness survey pulled up. 140 centimeters at her position. Solid enough to park a loaded truck on. "Far enough," Daniel said. "Let's go. Here is what I want you to hold on to." F7 had no cubs, no mate, no den, no reason to be 90 kilometers from her hunting corridor, standing motionless on open ice. The GPS said she had been there for 62 hours. The April temperature overnight had been minus 28. A polar bear standing still on open ice. In minus 28, for 62 hours, no shelter, no kill, no den is not resting. So why was she there? The ride took 2 hours and 40 minutes. Flat white ice in every direction. The horizon dissolved into sky at a distance that made it impossible to judge how far they had come or how far they had left. The cold at 60 kilometers per hour was a different kind of cold than standing still. It found every gap in the gear with the systematic patience of something that had been doing this for 10,000 years. Marcus drove. Daniel watched the GPS receiver and called corrections when the heading drifted, and tried not to think about what 62 hours on open ice in April meant for an animal that could not move. At the 1-hour mark, they picked up movement through the binoculars, a dark shape. Large, not moving fast. The dot on the receiver matched the shape on the ice. F-Sieve. She was circling something. The path she had worn into the snow was visible from 200 meters. Marcus cut the engine, and they watched. Whatever was at the center of her circuit was low against the white, not visible at this distance. Daniel was already unclipping his pack. They approached on foot. She stopped circling when they were 150 meters out, turned, looked. No threat display. She studied them with the focus of an animal in the middle of something and then turned back and resumed her circuit without explanation. At 80 meters, Daniel saw what she was circling. A male polar bear, large, 400 kilograms at least, full winter coat. Lying on his side on the ice, one rear leg extended at a wrong angle. And around that leg, half buried in the surface snow, a coil of synthetic rope. Braided nylon. 12 millimeter. The kind used by illegal under-ice seal hunting operations that worked the Foxe Basin corridor and left their gear on the ice when they moved on. The rope had partially frozen into the surface over winter. The male had walked into the coil. The knot tightened under his weight and did not loosen. He had been pulling against it long enough to exhaust himself. He was on his side. He could not stand. His head was up. He was watching them. F7 had not stopped circling. Daniel stood 50 meters back and looked at what he was seeing. F7 was not this male's mate. She was 7 years old. A male this size was 15 or older. Polar bears in this population were solitary outside the breeding season. There was no documented behavioral reason, none, in the entire scientific literature on polar bear social structure. For a female to spend 62 hours circling an injured male she had no reproductive relationship with. And yet the groove in the ice told him she had been here since before the GPS anomaly even registered on his screen. She had found him. She had stayed. And because she stayed, because her circling gave him something to track through the night, something to orient toward, the male had kept moving, kept his core temperature above the threshold that, in -28, he would not have survived alone. The data did not explain why she was here. The data only said he was still alive, and she was the reason. Daniel set down his pack. He got out the bolt cutters. The rope was braided nylon, frozen into a compression knot. Bolt cutters were not designed for it, but nylon that has been compressed under 400 kilograms of bear for 60-plus hours in sub-zero cold loses its flex entirely. It was no longer behaving like rope. It was behaving like rigid plastic. And rigid things. Under enough blade pressure. Shear. The problem was the approach. The male was exhausted but not sedated. He was a 400-kilogram predator in pain, and Daniel needed to get within 3 meters of his trapped leg. F7 was still circling at 12 meters distance. One person would work the rope. The other would watch the female. Marcus watched F7. Daniel took the bolt cutters and moved wide around the male's sight line, coming in from the downwind side low, slow. The deliberate, unhurried pace that experience had taught him read as non-threatening at close quarters. The male tracked him the entire way. His head came up. A low exhale, not a warning, not a roar. The sound of an animal registering something and not yet deciding what. At 3 meters, Daniel could see the full knot. The rope had cinched above the ankle joint tight enough to restrict circulation, not tight enough to fracture bone. The leg was swollen. The ice around it showed the scuff marks of dozens of attempts to stand. He placed the bolt cutters on the rope. The male looked at him. Daniel looked back. Then he cut. First attempt nothing. He repositioned. Adjusted the blade angle against the cold compression. Second attempt partial. Third attempt, the rope parted with a clean, sharp sound that carried across the April ice for 100 meters in every direction. The male moved his leg. Slowly at first. Testing. Then, with range. He rolled to a sternal position, front legs under his chest, and pushed. First attempt, he didn't make it. He rested. Second attempt slowly, with the effortful deliberateness of an animal that had been off its feet for a very long time. He stood. He was 400 kilograms, upright, 3 meters from Daniel. Daniel did not move. The male breathed. He looked at Daniel. He looked at F7, who had stopped circling and was watching from her position on the ice, the first time she had stopped since Daniel arrived. The male put weight on the freed leg, took a step, then another. He walked northwest, toward the open water leads where the hunting was, moving with the measured gait of an animal recalibrating after a very long time off its feet. F7 watched him go. Then she turned and looked at Daniel. 8 seconds. Daniel timed it later from the GoPro. Marcus had been running long enough to be unmistakable, short enough that he could not have told you afterward exactly what it contained. Then she turned northeast back toward her hunting corridor. Back toward the track the GPS had been building before the 62-hour anomaly began, and walked. Marcus said something. Daniel didn't catch it. He was writing in his field notebook time. Coordinates, condition of male at departure, direction of both animals, estimated duration of F7's presence based on track depth and ice surface. He photographed the rope, the depression where the male had lain. The worn circuit F7 had walked into the snow. Then he picked up the rope. They were not leaving it on the ice. He did not record what F7 had been doing for 62 hours, or what it meant that she had done it. The data supported a correlation. It did not support a conclusion. Field notebooks were not the place for what the data could not say. He looked northwest, where the male had gone. He looked northeast, where she had gone. He looked at the April sky above the Foxe Basin ice sheet that was, by every satellite record going back to 1979, thinner than it had been the April before. He had the rope in one hand and the bolt cutters in the other, and he stood on the ice for a moment longer than he needed to. Then he walked back to the snowmobiles. The Foxe Basin polar bear subpopulation numbers around 2,300 individuals, one of the more stable counts in the Canadian Arctic. The word stable is doing a lot of work in that sentence. The sea ice it depends on is not stable. The ice-free season in Foxe Basin has extended by more than 2 weeks per decade over the past 30 years. The spring hunting window, the period when bears access ringed seal pups under the ice and build the fat reserves that carry them through summer, is shorter every year. By a margin, the data measures precisely, and the bears experience in ways the data can only approximate. The abandoned rope in this story is part of a separate problem: illegal under-ice fishing operations that leave gear on the sea ice when they move on, creating hazards for wildlife that have no context for synthetic lines. The Canadian Wildlife Service and Fisheries and Oceans Canada maintain enforcement programs for the Foxe Basin corridor. Links are in the description below. Polar Bears International funds the field research and climate advocacy that address what is driving the ice loss. That link is also below. If this story stayed with you, like and subscribe. It helps these stories reach people who haven't heard them yet.